Hi, everybody. Oh my gosh, it's so good to be back and see all of the hard work that you have put in over the last week. I thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Amazing. I have been online for the last 24 hours just watching all the updates come through, and I can't tell you, I'm so stoked. And you guys are just on point. Just about everything you're saying makes sense. I love the fact that you're talking to each other candidly and that you're asking each other questions. You'll find when it comes to social problem and social research, no matter what field you're in, it is so important to collaborate with peers and colleagues and students to find out different ways of thinking. And that's exactly what you're doing, and I couldn't be more thrilled. So thank you for all your hard work again. It's really a lot of fun reading through them and seeing what your areas of interest are. So you may be asking, why in the heck does she have an iceberg on the screen right now? Well, I want us to start looking at social problems from a top-down approach. If you notice on this iceberg, you can see the very, very tip of the iceberg above the water there, but you can't see what lies beneath all of this stuff. And look at how big that is, the stuff that's under the surface of the water. I kind of like to look at social problems in this, using this metaphor, because really when we do this search, when we're looking at social problems for the first time, we're only looking at that very, very, very top part of the iceberg. What lies beneath is something much larger. Usually it's structural in nature. And we need to understand the top before we start digging down. So I'm going to be asking you this week to continue doing your searches for more articles. I'm actually going to ask you to try to get onto the library website and see if you can find some journal articles next. Obviously, you can use Google to continue doing that for now, but starting next week, or the week after rather, we're going to start using academics' primary sources that read a lot like that first article I gave you. And that is where things get a little tricky, because academics don't like to write for normal people. They only like to write so other academics can understand what they're saying. But now that I'm back online, I'll be here with you every step of the way. Oh, and thank you for those of you that have called me since my arrival back online. Much appreciated. I love talking to you. So please continue those calls. And every time I'm online grading, unless I've got a ton to do, I open up the office hour window. So please pop by and say hi. Ask any questions that you have. I don't mind. You are not bothering me. Unless you call me at like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night when I'm watching Parks and Rec. Then you're kind of bothering me. But any other time, it's fine. Okay, so let's go further. Like I just said, the top of the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg, that's what we see in everyday life. We've had some discussions about homelessness, about guns, perceptions of individuals in the workplace, and, race and hip-hop even. Those are things that are present, and we all deal with them in some form or another. We know about them. And these are the things that we talk about in the general populace. These are the things that people see and they get angry at. A couple of other really good examples are the marijuana legalization argument. A couple of you were into that. Gay marriage, the gender pay gap. Abortion was huge, obviously. Some of these problems that we're talking about here are police abuse. Some of them are maybe not quite as visible to everyone. For instance, police abuse and political correctness. Sometimes they're not seen by everybody as a social problem. So what we have to do is we have to start to define who says what the phenomena that you're talking about is a problem. If you talk to me, I'm going to tell you gay marriage is not a problem. I have no issue with it whatsoever. Is gay marriage a social problem then? I don't know. That's what we need to find out. And I'm going to try to give you some guidelines as to how to determine the roots of what we're talking about. Because oftentimes, and some of you want to talk about this, I can tell, when we talk about abortion, for instance, some people see that as a social problem, you know. And in fact, as a sociologist, if I look and you look at that issue from different angles, we'll see that it's really the actual act is not problematic. It's for society. It is the other components of it. I should mention right now that in some of the posts I'm reading into your personal views and your opinions, and that is totally okay at this stage of the game. It's important to get those out. And as a matter of fact, your second personal journal is going to focus on that, because we have to situate ourselves in the literature. And I mentioned that a number of times, and some of you actually mentioned it in your discussions this week, which was exciting to see. We want to make sure when we are doing research that we try to be as unbiased as possible, okay? It's not going to ever happen. You're not going to be 100% non-biased or unbiased in your work. You know, part of you always creeps into it, because these are topics that are important to you. And if they weren't, you wouldn't be thinking about them or trying to discuss them in a format such as this. So we want to stay away from dichotomous thinking, meaning that there's a yes or a no resolution. Social problems are messy. They're not something that is easily fixed. They're not something that everybody is going to agree with. And they oftentimes will go against everybody's common sense or what people want. So we have to be very, very careful that, going forward, that we don't say, well, what is your opinion on gun control? How do you feel? Because that kind of starts to bring in the bias. But at this stage of the game, like I said, that's a good thing. I'm glad we talked about those things. But going forward, I'm going to ask you to start getting into sociologist mode a little bit more. While it is totally appropriate to bring up the role of religion in many of these issues, it probably isn't a good idea to use religious doctrine as a cornerstone to your argument. That would be totally appropriate in a philosophy class or in a theology class. I don't know, maybe even a law class, a legal class, I don't know. But in sociology, we would look at the religious component and say, well, what is religion have to say about this? And how strong is the religiosity or the measure of how religious a group of people are? Does that impact how the society deals with this issue? So what we're trying to do is find the root cause of the social problem. And in the case of gay marriage really isn't the problem. I think if we delve down deeper below the surface, we'll see that there's some other issues. Somebody made the argument about taxes and how tax revenue increases when gay marriage is legalized or same-sex marriage is legalized. And that's very true. But who benefits from that? In another post, we were talking about, I think, undocumented students and the cost of education, the cost of living, and, money going to the public funding of social services and social well-being. I don't like the name social welfare. I call it social well-being because I think that's generally, most cases, what we're talking about is the well-being of every member of our society. So, those are some of the things to look at and to start thinking about. So what I did was I came up with a chart that I thought might help you, especially on the abortion and gay marriage issues, because they tend to be the ones that are usually arguments against are religious in nature or philosophical, meaning, the beginning of life or what defines a marriage. So I wanted to take you through the five big stages, or the five big theories, and show you how we can look at each one of these as a social problem. Okay, so the first one we're going to go through is abortion. Now remember, conflict theory is all about power. Who gets to have power, who doesn't? And then how are resources allocated, and how do the people in power maintain power? So in the case of abortion, if we were going to look at through a conflict theory lens, we'd say, who has the power to decide if abortion is legal? That might be one question we would ask. Now, CRT, if you remember correctly, is critical race theory, which deals specifically with race relations. You throw ethnicity in there as well. If there is conflict between two ethnic groups, as we see in some parts of the world. But critical race theory would ask specifically, what are the impact on people of color? Meaning, are members of a certain minority group, and I mean that in the power sense, not in the numerical sense, what impact is there on this group of people? Are those individuals more likely or less likely to undergo this medical procedure? What is the stereotype, right? And then what is the reality based in race? Feminism is going to ask pretty much the same question. What impact does this procedure have on women? Or how do women impact the ability to have this procedure legally? So feminism and critical race theory are both offshoots of conflict theory. Those three things are pretty much tied together. So you can see where the questions of power, resources, privilege, they can all come into play. Now, if we're going to look at this from a functionalist perspective, the first thing we have to ask is, what is the function of abortion socially? So what is the function? We can't say just to control population. Well, we might say that, but I think that it's a much deeper question. We could also say, what is the function of the right to life movement socially? And that may be to reinforce social morality. There's a number, and that takes us into conflict theory. This is the messy part, guys, and this is going to take us, I think, the longest to get through these things. So finally, we could look at abortion through the symbolic interactionism lens, and that would ask, how are women stigmatized by abortion, and what does it mean in society? So what is the act representative? What is representative in the act? And not to the sense of ending a life, although that may be true depending on what you believe, but more along the lines of, do women who undergo this procedure, are they seen as less than women? Are they seen as women that are promiscuous? Women that can't hold a man? Those kind of things, right? And it's important to note, too, that this is and this goes back to feminism, this is a women's issue. Not that men are not involved, in the decision making or the process that leads to this. But women ultimately are the ones that are allowed to decide whether or not this is something they want to do. And so what does that mean in society? That women don't have a lot of control over a lot of things in the world, yet they have the control over life. And then we could talk about capital punishment and that. I think that's a good example of how messy this argument can get. And next week we're going to talk about how we start to boil that stuff down so that it doesn't seem so overwhelming. Because by now you're probably all going, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? I can't handle this. This is crazy. There's too much of this stuff. And that's okay, because that's part of the process as well. I got you. I got you. Nothing's going to happen. I got you. Okay? So let's go and use the other, one of the other threads that really had people talking, and that was gay marriage. So if we use conflict theory, we're going to ask who has the power to define what marriage is and is not. Or do we have a lot of gay, lesbian, transgendered individuals in power defining what marriage is? To say that the Bible or God or religion or whatever you believe has the power to define marriage. Again, that belongs in a philosophy class, in a theology class, in a legal class, maybe. We're talking about social stuff. So we want to know who has the power socially to define marriage. And that's a tough question sometimes. Or it's not tough, but it may take a while for some individuals to answer that. Critical race theory would say, what is the impact of people on people of color? So do we see gay, lesbian, transgendered marriages happening in minority communities? If so, is there, what is the impact on those communities? And feminism, what's the impact on women? Is it an equalizer? Does it allow women to, have power in society, in a society that they traditionally don't? Feminism would also lead us into queer studies, which is kind of sort of part of sociology, I guess. And that talks about looking at social issues from the gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered perspective. So we're looking at, instead of women, instead of individuals of color, we're looking at individuals that have that are not straight. Let me just put it that way. So then finally we get to functionalism. What's the function of marriage in society? Now notice I didn't say what is the function of gay marriage in society, right? I asked the question, why do we have marriage? Why do we have to have it? It's not easy to answer, because to answer this question we have to go further than it's the way that we make families in this country. That might be part of it, but there's plenty of families out there that aren't married, that have raised children, that now have grandchildren. So we need to look at this in a more broad perspective. Finally, we would get to symbolic interactionism, and that is, what does marriage represent to the society? Well, it represents a lot in the United States, or we wouldn't be having this ongoing debate. So we would want to look at maybe some of the religious connotations that go along with marriage. Again, the stigmatization that can occur when you are not in a relationship with someone of the opposite sex. So these are 5 different ways of looking at just 2 of the social issues that you all brought up. These are issues at this point. I don't think they're really problems yet. We'll dig deeper and we'll get there, I promise. So what I'd like you to do for next week is to start going deeper. Continue the conversations up in this week's discussion. Okay, I don't want to ruin the threads because there's a lot of good stuff percolating, and I think once you start talking even more, you'll get there even quicker. I will continue to pop in and kind of ask questions when I feel the need to, but I am going to try to let you all drive that conversation. I'll answer questions, and I will go ahead and post on my own thread with higher ed. But I really want you guys talking back and forth amongst each other. There is a personal journal writing due this week that talks about ethnocentricity and trying to find out what's going on. So what I've asked you to do is tell me the 10 things that you know about your topic. And they have to be facts as you see them. And you're not allowed to use Google or any other search engine to find the answers. Okay, that part will come. But I just want us to kind of get down in our heads where we're coming at from each of these different places. And I will definitely post up a personal journal entry of my own later on this week. Continue your research. That's really, really important. Start looking at the different aspects that have come up in your conversations in the forum. And start digging pretty deep now, okay? I'm going to show you in just a second one way you can do that on the library site at College of Alameda. Think non-ethnocentrically. If you want to say because it's wrong, don't think that way. I just did it, but that's okay because I am trying to make a point. You want to make sure that you are trying to suspend your judgment as long as you possibly can when you're talking about these issues. I know that's hard, you guys. I have a really difficult time with that because if you know me, I tend to think I'm right a lot of the time, if not in my professional setting. And I was told the other day by my partner that I can be intimidating when I get like that. And that's because I hold some very, very, very strong personal beliefs. And it's hard to suspend those when I'm doing my professional work. And start to define your topic in greater detail. Most of you started from a very, very, very broad brushstroke. Start thinking about how you can narrow that topic down. One way to do this is to write out every single word that makes you think of your topic and then cross out the ones that don't sound interesting. I would recommend doing some more reading first, though, before you go there. And I'll even put up a quick brain dump exercise online, probably midweek next week. Okay, so let me quickly show you. See how messy my desktop is. Let me quickly show you. Oh, darn it. Quickly show you this. Sorry about that, guys. I want to save that. So here it is. Academic excellence. Woo-hoo. And we're going to go to the library. And then we want to go to article databases. Now, I don't have access for some reason. I was going to show you how to do this, and then I found out I couldn't get in. Academic Search Primer is very similar to EBSCO. I think it's actually, or Premier, I'm sorry. It's actually a companion site to the one I use usually. So you just go ahead and log in here, start entering keywords, and just see what you find. You want to try to, while you still want to get mainstream media articles, try to start going in more of the academic realm of things. And we can discuss how to do that more in depth later on this week. So once again, you guys, thank you so very much. I am really I'm loving this stuff that you're coming out with. Keep up the great work, please. And start to look for the people that have similar areas of interest. I know that the gender pay gap and the perception discussions could go hand in hand. I mean, I think you guys would have a lot in common. The marijuana legalization, depending on whether or not you want to go in a medical direction with that or not, would probably go hand in hand with obesity, childhood vaccines, and yeah, I think those were the only two I've seen so far. So start looking for themes that resonate with yours, and start talking to those people more and more. I guarantee you, the more discussions you have, the easier the next couple of assignments will be. So you guys take care, and I will be talking with you very, very soon online and be posting up a video again as soon as I can. So thanks again, you guys. Keep up the great work. I appreciate it. And have a good night. No, don't do that. Sorry.